Okay, welcome back. We're going to look at pretty much exactly what we looked at in the last video, but we're going to look at it in a much more intuitive way, which is by using keyboard shortcuts. Now, that might not sound more intuitive when we start, but actually it very much is when you use in Blender, because we have some extra tips that we can use, okay? So the first one is to emulate, if you like, the moving of the object. So we use the G key, which stands for grab. And once we press the G key, we just press it once. We don't have to press anything on the mouse. We can move the mouse then, and we can move the object in 3D space. Now, just a little test for you. I want you to think about where that might be sat in 3D space. So I click to lock its position in. Now, to my eyes, it could be sat on this plane, level with this plane here, the ground plane, but back over in the distance. It could be sat here above the green line. And we only really know by rotating round, and there we can see we have sat it above the green line. I'm just going to press Command and Z and put it back in the middle. Now, a much more precise way is that if I press G and then Y, it locks me in to that plane there. So I can only move it on the Y plane. Okay, pressing G and X means I can only move it on the X plane, and as you'd expect, G and Z locks me in to the Z plane. Now you can exclude a plane, so if I don't want to move up and down but I want to be able to move it around the ground plane, I press G, Shift and Z, and what that now does is it lets me move it anywhere I like on the X or Y axis, but doesn't let me move it up and down. So I can lock it in over here, and if we scroll round we can see it's in exactly the same place on the Z axis, but it's not anywhere there. And we can do that again with grab, Shift X, and now we can move it up and down, we can move it left and right, but we can't move it forwards and backwards. Okay. And the same works with the rotate. We can rotate it around the Z axis. We can rotate it around the X axis. And we can rotate it around the Y axis. Now, while we can exclude rotating using Shift, so R, Shift, Z, it doesn't work in quite the same way. So I'm going to miss that bit out here, and we'll come to it later when it's relevant to what we're doing. Same with scale, so that's the S key. We can scale along the Y axis by pressing S and Y. By pressing S and X, we can scale across the X axis, and S and Z on the Z axis, and again we can exclude S, Shift Z, means we'll scale on the X and Y axis, but not the Z axis. The Z axis will stay exactly the same. So again, have a play, G, R and S for grab, rotate and scale. And once you get used to using those in conjunction with the X, Y and Z keys and the Shift X, Y and Z keys, you'll find that you have a lot more freedom in how you scale, rotate and generally transform that basic object. And they're the basics which we'll build on in the next one when we learn how to create new objects from the objects that we've already got, using probably one of the most useful commands in Blender, and that's extrude. Okay, I look forward to experimenting with that and seeing you in the next video.